We now come to another aspect of the study of statistics, the beginning aspect, the sources of data. Collection of data is a complex process, very difficult process, time consuming process, costly process. This is why collection of data work is mostly undertaken by government agencies, or even if private agencies are taking it, they are specialized agencies who sell this data to the interested institutions and persons. Example of government collecting data, the great example is population census. You know what is population census? Counting the number of people living in the country. That is population census. We are nearly 125 crore people at present, and imagine contacting all the 125 crore people and collecting data about them, how much costly this task would be, how much time consuming this task would be. This is why population census is taken only once in 10 years. Last census was taken in 2011. There are other examples too. There is an agency called Central Statistical Office. This agency earlier was called Central Statistical Organization. Now its name has been changed. It is called now National Accounts. So this agency publishes National Accounts Statistics. This is the name of the magazine, published yearly by the CSO, Central Statistical Office. Seeing at the importance of this data collection, Government of India has a separate ministry simply for collecting statistics, a separate ministry simply for collecting statistics. I have given you a few examples. There are other examples also which may take during the course of the lecture. The data so collected by government agencies or private agencies, it is published regularly in newspapers, in magazines, in specialized books, specialized journals. Who makes use of this data? Of course, first government for policy making, then there are researchers who conduct research, then there are businesses who plan their business, like this. Now, data when originally collected by an agency, it is called primary data. It is called primary data. But when this data is used by others, for example, there is a magazine called Economic Survey, which takes data from here and there and publishes a sort of a report every year before the budget called Economic Survey. So, one agency collecting it and the other agency using it, then it is called secondary data. One agency collecting. So, what is primary data? The agency which is originally collecting it also uses it. Secondary data, agency which is using it borrows from other sources, then that data becomes a secondary data. So, this leads us to the study of primary data and secondary data. So, principally speaking, theoretically there can be two sources, primary source and the secondary source. I gave you the example of Economic Survey. There is a magazine called Economic Survey. It is published by Government of India every year before the budget, and it contains data about all the aspects of the economy, of the Indian economy. This magazine takes data from Census of India, from CSO, National Account Statistics. Then there is another important organization, NSSO, National Sample Survey Office. National Sample Survey Office, which was earlier called National Sample Survey Organization. Now it is called National Sample Survey Office. So, nearly all the data published in Economic Survey is a secondary data, is a secondary source. We have just mentioned about NSSO, CSO, Census. When they publish data, that is a primary source. When Economic Survey publishes data, it is mainly secondary source. So, how can we define a primary source? We have already given some definition of it. Data collected and issued by the same agency. Remember, collected and issued by the same agency is primary data. Data collected by one agency, issued by another agency or used by another agency, it is called secondary data. We have already mentioned the primary sources of data in India. There is census of population, CSO, Central Statistical Office, publishing data on national income. Then there is NSSO, National Sample Survey Office, publishing data on industries, employment and many other things. Then there is RBI, Reserve Bank of India, publishing data on monetary aspects balance of payments aspects in the country. Then there is Labor Bureau. This is important. Labor Bureau. Labor Bureau publishes data on labor, different aspects of labor. So there are various agencies, primary agencies in the country. It is normally said that primary source is better than secondary source. Let us see why. Why prefer primary source? Why prefer primary source of data? There are various reasons. Every collection of data involves terms and units. Only the original agency explains what are these terms, what do they mean, what do they cover. Only original agency explains the units in which it is measured and what is the relevance of these units and all that. So one reason why we should prefer primary data, because includes explanation of terms and units engaged in collection of data. There are various examples, I just gave you one. CSO publishing data about national income. It explains either in appendix or somewhere the meaning of the various terms involved. Economic survey, when publishes it, doesn't bother about explaining the terms involved in the data. So if somebody is interested, what is GDP? What is factor price? He has no alternative but to go to the original source, the primary source. So this is why one reason for preference of primary data. Second reason, economic survey simply publishes the data. It does not publish the methodology. Methodology involves many things. Sample क्या है? What is the sample? How it has been selected? And what are its limitations and all that. So another reason for preferring is that it gives step by step methodology. Step by step methodology. Like questionnaire. We will study in detail about questionnaire and all that. Questionnaire is simply the questions asked from the people, that that list of questions is called questionnaire. Method of selecting sample. There are many methods of selecting sample which we will study later. Method of approaching respondents. Have you contacted the respondent, the one who answers your questions, personally, or have you sent the questionnaire by mail and then he has answered? Every such method has its own limitations, own advantages. So, unless the data user knows the methodology, the data user is not in a position to determine the quality of the data, how much reliable is the data, how much correct is the data. Now, another advantage of is gives more details. I can give you an example. Economic survey publishes population state-wise. Andhra itna, Assam itna, UP itna, like that. But a census publishes data district wise. Why does not economic survey publishes data district wise? Because it does not suit them. It is lot of space consuming. Maybe they do not require this data at all. So, if one is interested in more details, there is no alternative but to go to the primary source. There is another advantage of primary data. When the secondary source takes data from the primary source, there are chances that there may be mistakes and errors. The mistakes may be human, the mistakes may be committed by the computer, the mistakes may be intentional, may be unintentional. So, if you come across a data and if you think in the secondary source, you think something is wrong with the data, it can't be like that. So, you have no alternative but to go to the primary data. So, mistakes and errors may creep into secondary data. Mistakes and errors may creep into secondary data.